called Lestrade. He didn't know how he knew that either, but he realized, since this was only a dream, it probably didn't really matter. One step, two step, closer to the horrifying secret, whatever that was. There was no sound in the hallway. He could see that the floors were white tile, the walls were a clinical lime green, and everywhere was the smell of disinfectant. It covered up another smell, a smell he didn't want to think about because of the grotesque associations it brought up in his psyche. What am I doing here, he thought. Why does this always keep happening to me? It seems like I keep getting dropped here somehow, and as soon as I get used to it, I run back down this hallway, out the double doors, and then I run smack dab into yet another world. Could this all just be a dream? He wondered, realized he was mumbling to himself and bit his lip. He realized, not for the first time, that he was wearing a hospital gown. Outside, he could hear the blare of supersonics blast the night with the inaudible screech that they were calling postmodern avant noise. But then, as quickly as a 77 floatmobile could swoop by, it was gone. How thin were these walls? Could it all be just a simulation? He was hovering near the door handle. It was simply a chrome plate, activated clearly by a palm print. He grimaced. Most modern locks used a retinal scan. He put his hand on the cool surface of the plate. It was dark in here. No windows. No light shone through, and the walls weren't thin. He now knew they were 100 miles thick and counting. He looked into the center of the room, and the urine froze in his bladder. His mind bolted. It was too horrible to even contemplate. He found himself racing down the darkened hall, the mellow light ahead of him seeming all of a sudden to recede into the distance. He felt like he was running in place. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Everything was painted in infrared. He began to simply grope his way along. These walls weren't tiled anymore. He moved his palm along a stony surface. It seemed like he could hear the drip, drip, drip of water deep in the bowels of darkness. Where was he? Gradually, he began to realize he was now in a hotel room in Indianapolis. Betty, the prostitute, lay sprawled out on the bed. Her body was like a milk-white twist of cordwood. Her arms were dotted with tracks. Her eyes looked like twin vacant moons. He suddenly knew this was 2003. He rolled over and surveyed the hotel room. It was a nice place. Everything seemed to be in order. One bed, one TV set showing 24 hours of pornography, and a tub of ice. He had stubbed out another cigarette on the nightstand. He knew she was coming in and out of a very drugged state. Hey, so how was it, you know? He didn't turn around. He didn't like to see her naked right after he'd spent his passion. It always made him feel like he was trying to cram an extra piece of gristle into his mouth after a particular greasy meal. I'll give you 100. I've got 100. Peggy? Irene, she corrected him. She drooled a little down the side of her mouth. Her lids were half. Nobody really knows what is going on. Oh, people will sure try and convince you that they do, but don't you ever believe them. Everyone is an agent. Everyone is a plant. Some people even have so many levels of cover they don't even know who the hell they are. My name is Bob Kane. I work for the Daily Trumpet. Yeah, we're small-time supermarket trash. But with one important distinction. We always print the truth. So that is why I say don't trust anyone. It doesn't pay in this game. Just do the footwork, collect whatever information you can, and interpret it how your gut tells you to. Lo and behold, all else is false. Right now, there is a government communication satellite beaming messages to my brain. It can do this because of the tiny metallic implant that was lodged in my nose when I was abducted by so-called aliens as a child. I, of course, don't remember any of this consciously, but only became aware of it through regressive hypnosis. Unfortunately, hypnotic regression is bullshit too. Right now, as I sit here at my desk looking at incredibly tall stacks of manila folders, I am waiting for my contact to call. He usually calls around 6 p.m. Pacific time. He claims, among other things, to be the deposed ruler of the tiny island nation of Barjo Tarjo. But, of course, this is bullshit. He is probably CIA. Boom, phone rings. I pick up. Faust here. A raspy voice on the other end says, Faust, this is the Condor. I have just been informed of some interesting information that you might be interested in looking into. Shoot, I say, thinking, this had better not be about Bigfoot sightings in Indiana or something stupid. It seems there have been a rash of Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. People are very scared, and the 3 have already been there to probe witnesses. I leaned back and thought, oh shit. I have a story due in 1 week, and this is the best he can do for me. Look, Condor, I hate to burst your bubble, but nobody really cares about Bigfoot sightings anymore. I mean, so there's a big furry animal in the woods, so what? Condor sounded like somebody had just hammered on his big toe with a hardcover copy of Dianetics. I knew it would be unwise from a career standpoint to lose my only informant, so I hastily added, what can you do for me on the bug-eyed monster tip? You usually come up with something good there. He paused for a moment and then said in a much less raspy voice, well, there's a rumor going around that full colonization is supposed to begin next month. They are even supposed to already have the location picked out. It's my old stomping grounds. I just about choked. Barjo Tarjo, you're telling me I actually have a reason to go to Barjo Tarjo? He remained silent. I wondered if maybe he wasn't just some lonely middle-aged nobody that called up bad tabloid reporters to make false claims of alien colonization and government conspiracy. Then it dawned on me that was exactly what he was. I caught the first plane out. It occurs to me that I really haven't told you anything about myself. My name is Bob Kane, and I've been writing articles for The Trumpet for nearly 20 years. In that short span of time, I have come to a couple of conclusions concerning the nature of reality and why things are the way they are. I would share them with you if I could, but you know how things are in this game. Loose lips sink careers. The real secrets, oddly enough, are right out in the open for everybody to know. Take the Freemasons, for instance. Everybody knows that behind the nice, respectable exterior lurks a super secret occult organization that controls the reins of world government and finances. What about UFOs? How many people have to see them hovering over country roads at night before the rest of the world catches up and decides that there really is something strange going on? Do they think that this is all some sort of elaborate joke? No. I decided the elaborate joke hypothesis was invalid last month. I remember how I first got dragged into this web of intrigue. I was an average, normal, mildly paranoid guy working at a telemarketing firm in Muncie, Indiana. I was dead broke, making my way through college and living in this piss-poor rooming house that smelled like mold on the best days. Anyway, I discovered a book called Behold a Pale Horse by a writer named Milton William Cooper. That book changed my life, man. It was as if I had been blind to what was going on in the world around me and had finally been given a pair of X-ray eyes. Everything he claimed, New World Order, UFOs, mind control, etc., seemed to be hideous possibilities that I never before knew existed. I was hooked. I was sold. I, oddly enough, thought most of the book was disinformation. After that, I devoured books on conspiracies, secret societies, esoteric organizations. I read every book that the university library had on UFO and alien abductions, crop circles, ghosts, and mysterious creatures. I even became an expert, for some reason, on Jack the Ripper. Fearing there was a possibility that the Illuminatus have sent him forward in time after 1888, my head literally reeled some days. So when I got the job at the Trumpet, it just seemed natural. The Trumpet, whose idea of investigative reporting was getting a phone call in the middle of the night from some fat housewife in Des Moines who claims that a flying saucer has just sat down in her backyard. Headline screams, "Fat housewife meets with space aliens." So I think the chances of me winning a Pulitzer are a little far-fetched. I was having dinner with Mary Sue Lebinsky one night when I got a call from a mysterious man who claimed to be the last living representative of a race of Venusian explorers who crash-landed on Earth 75,000 years ago. He sounded like any other cranky old fart, so in a gust of bravado I invited him over. "No!" exclaimed Mary Sue. "Don't do that. What kind of a nut is he? Maybe he has a gun or something." I leaned back at the dinner table and lit a cigarette. "Don't worry," I reassured her. "These guys are all alike. They're all real brave on the telephone, but get them in person and they go to pieces. They're harmless." She scowled and turned some spaghetti on her fork. "I hope you're right," she said. I knew I was. I doffed a glass of wine and sat back. Life was good to me. I had a new house, a new car, a hot girl, an alien contactee coming over to talk to me. What more could a man ask for? I didn't really expect him to show up. But after we sat and mumbled between each other for a few more minutes, I thought I could hear the tiniest pitter-pat on my front door. I was shocked. I listened closer. It was still there. I didn't know what to do. Well, said Mary, aren't you going to answer the damn door? I went a little shakily and looked out the peephole. There was an old gray-haired man standing on the front doorstep. He certainly didn't seem threatening, but in this business you know that appearances can be deceiving. I calculated the risk, decided it was good, and opened up. Howdy, the old man said. I'm the guy that you just talked to. Yeah, come on in, Mr. Shotsky is the name, son. Bob Shotsky. I guess you know why I'm here. He sat down with us at the dinner table, making sure to introduce himself to Mary with a little bow. He didn't look like any alien I'd ever seen. Now, Mr. Shotsky, let me get this straight. You claim to be a 75,000-year-old alien from Venus, is that correct? I thought it might be a nice touch to clear away the dirty dishes and half-eaten food, so I motioned to Mary, who took no notice. The old man laughed. It was a big, country boy laugh and sounded completely natural. Heavens no, Mr. Kane. Oh, well, I was under the impression I just represent their interests here on Earth. Now let me get down to brass tacks, as they say. The Galactic Council has decided to step up its project of colonization. Your world, as it is, has outlived its usefulness. They want to resettle the human race to a more advanced place in the galaxy. Kind of like an Indian reservation. I looked at him and my mouth made a little, oh. So, when is this supposed to take place? I mean, what kind of information have your sources been feeding you? I was curious to know exactly what kind of story he dreamed up to go along with what he had just told me, and was not disappointed at what he said next. Well, Mr. Kane, I get my info from the horse's mouth. I have been in communication with Ashtar Command since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and lately they have asked me aboard the beam ship for a little interstellar ride that, I can assure you, was a real swell time. By the way, my Venusian name is Halo. I could hear Mary in the kitchen doing dishes. I didn't know how much of this I wanted to hear. It wouldn't do for her to get freaked out by the kind of people I associated with in my line of work. I leaned over the table and asked, "Can I offer you a beer, Mr. Shotsky?" He smiled. He looked like a shark when he smiled. "Certainly, Mr. Kane." Boy, had that old duffer had a story to tell. Met some Venusians posing as government scientists in the Arizona desert when he was out prospecting for a super secret radioactive mineral isotope that was supposed to cure cancer. So here he is leading his mule across the barren open expanse of tumbleweed and tarantulas, and all of a sudden he sees a metallic glint in the air. An egg-shaped saucer sets down right in front of him. A hatchway opens up in the side, and out steps the regulation tall, blonde, Nordic type that seems to always put in an appearance for the contactee set. "Hello," it said. "My name is Captain Wilson. I've come a very long way to talk to you, Bob Shotsky. It seems I have been entrusted by one on the Galactic Council, a subdelegate of the Ashtar Command, to impart to you the full knowledge of what must shortly come to pass. But first, if you'll just be so good as to step aboard, we can take a little tour of the ship." "Well," Bob had said, "that was the only encouragement I needed. I went on up the hatchway, and as soon as I stepped aboard, I saw all these blinking lights and computers and all these electrical gadgets that I still don't really understand. But old Captain Wilson, he sure came through for me all right. He explained it was all just a smokescreen, that the real technology had been hidden away from view, and what I was seeing was just a part of the control system they had to implement to shield minds from knowledge that was not as advanced as theirs. But he showed me around anywho." He stopped to take another swig of beer, then continued. "Well, there were 2 other crewmen with Wilson, but they never told me their names. They all pretty much looked alike. They were all wearing the same kind of silvery one-piece outfit." I played absent-mindedly with a strand of spaghetti. I wondered what my chances of getting all this to fly with my editor would be. Probably just about as good as another story about El Chupacabra. "So, Bob, just what was the momentous secret knowledge they had to impart to you?" "I mean, they came all the way from Venus just to meet you out in Arizona. Must have had a good reason. Bob Shotsky sat back, chugged his beer in one gulp, and belched mildly. He said, "Well, sir, now that is the real crux of the whole matter. I can only tell you what I am allowed to say. There is another race of spacemen, and they mean the people of Earth no good. They're called the Black Lords." I gulped. That didn't sound too promising. In fact, it sounded like something straight out of a comic book, and I told him so. He seemed nonplussed. "Well," he said, "be that as it may, that is what they are called. They're going to come and wreak widespread devastation at the end of 2005. That is, if the people of Earth don't somehow manage to clean up their act." I shot him a suspicious look. I had heard this kind of claptrap before, and I didn't know if I was going to fall for it or not. Such are the inherent risks in any profession where it often pays to wonder if one is going to be incredulous. "And pray tell," I asked, "how are we supposed to go about this cleaning up of our act? I mean, should we start with the nukes, the environment, dirty political dealings? How is it to be done, so as to satisfy the Black Lords that they don't need to swoop down from Zeta Reticuli and kill us all?" "Well," he said, a little irritated, "I reckon folks are just supposed to start being more kind and caring to each other. Also, I was told that the Black Lords would like to see more cooperation between mankind and several different rapidly evolving species of primate. Otherwise, it's doomsday for the lot of us." I wondered just why they were so interested in this last particular item. Was it that deep inside they wanted us to come to a fuller appreciation of where we had come from as a species? Or was it just another smokescreen, another smelly fish in an already overflowing barrel of rotten red herrings? I asked him if it was okay if I tape recorded all of this. "Oh," he said, unconcernedly, "I suppose so, but don't expect the tapes to actually come out okay. Ever since my first contact with Captain Wilson out in the high desert of Arizona, I ain't been able to be recorded or photographed in any way." And do you guys know what? It was true. So here I am now boarding Conway Flight 219 out of Indianapolis Airport. I know these are dangerous times to be flying, terrorism, mid-air collision, alien kidnappings, but I have to get to Barjo Tarjo and check out the situation. I remind myself as I start to feel the first few tinges of panic creep across my skull that the Condor has never let me down yet. If I don't find what I'm looking for on Barjo Tarjo, I'll never find it. This is a 4-hour deal. I lay back, thumbing through an old copy of Crossfire, The Plot That Killed Kennedy, by Jim Marrs. I become steadily more engrossed in the Kennedy assassination cover-up, but not too engrossed. I mean, I remember to always keep alert to the presence of shadowy figures that might be tailing me. Thankfully, this flight seems to be made up mostly of overweight businessmen and group of traveling Tibetan monks. But just when I thought it was safe, I looked up from my book and spied a suspicious-looking character sitting 2 rows ahead of me, and to the left, suspicious because I caught him staring at me out of the corner of his beady little eyes. He is a big, hulking, gray-headed man that looks like he belongs riding at the back of a garbage truck, but I know in this game appearances don't mean squat. Everybody is concealed under so many different layers of cover, they must sometimes wonder themselves just who the hell they are. The friendly neighborhood ice cream jockey is actually an international drug kingpin and CIA informant. The friendly neighborhood video store doubles as a front for the Church of Scientology. Yes, now you know why they stock so many videocassette copies of Battlefield Earth. The friendly neighborhood, and so on and so forth, but that term is really an oxymoron. There's nothing friendly about anybody's neighborhood anymore. Suburbia is just a convenient smokescreen for the vultures to come circling in, pecking at the last few remnants of our freedom and liberty. Pressure, pressure. I start to feel the first few beads of sweat break out over my face. They are steadily dampening the pages of my favorite book, and somehow the fact makes me even more nervous. Damn it. I had caught him twice now, looking over at me, leering. I knew it might mean nothing, but then again it might mean everything. But should I say something? In the seat in front of me, a little kid turns around and says, "Hey, mister, what are you reading about?" I look away from Mr. Garbage Man for a moment. I look at the boy, An immense wave of pity seizes me. This youngster, who was sitting by an older, ruffled lady that promised to be Mama, was growing up in a world that I full well knew was perched on the brink of disaster. He would grow up never knowing the basic truths about life, how we were seated here by extraterrestrial explorers, how they built the pyramids, how the Freemasons and their masters, the Illuminatus, have been manipulating the world political and financial situation for centuries to try and bring about a totalitarian new world order. I weep for these young ones who will never know what it is like to sit out in the backyard, looking up at the night sky and fully expecting an intergalactic invasion. We, as a nation, have fallen on sad times. Well, Junior, it's like this. Back a long time before you were born, there was a great man named John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was our president. Well, some bad men, rabid anti-communist and anti-Castro factions from Cuba, who were still pissed because of the whole Bay of Pigs thing, were hired to act as the assassins of that great man. They were hired and trained by the Texas oil barons, who took their orders from an even shadier cabal who were probably in league with the CIA, Skull and Bones, and the real masterminds, the Majestic 12. Majestic almost certainly orchestrated the entire deal to cover up the crash of an actual flying disc at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, so the kid has no idea what to say. I realized that in my fervor to inform, I had probably been overheard by Garbage Man, and had probably just blown whatever minimal cover I might still have possessed. But then I think of what Dad would have had me do in a similar situation. Somewhere, sitting in the cab of some heavenly pickup truck with a shotgun beside him and a copy of God is My Co-Pilot sitting on his lap, Dad was smiling at me. It all might still turn out in my favor. The stewardess came out into the aisle to demonstrate the use of the orange flotation device. Don't ask me how I know this, but 7 hours before I boarded Conway Flight 129 to Barjo Tarjo, a secret meeting was held in the secret confines of a place that masqueraded during the daylight hours as a sleazy hole-in-the-wall telemarketing firm. Officially, it was called Modern Display, and it was in a weird prefab building that still smelled like paint and looked like it had been put together in a grand total of about 2.5 days. There were a set of dismal offices up front, with fake paperwork and fake display models of fake merchandise that was equally fake. Oh, there were a small factory area, with a lot of illegal aliens working jobs that on the surface seemed real enough. At least they got paid real illegal alien wages for doing them. So they spent most of an 8-hour day making Christmas decorations that were usually just carted out to the country and burned on a trash heap. But the expense of such waste mattered little when the funding for the project came from such powerful financiers. It was only after midnight when this cabal dared to get together for their meetings. It was in a smoke-filled back room.